Okay, in this tutorial, we're going to look at creating some contact icons using the Pathfinder panel, and we just went through Pathfinder and Shape Builder. Maybe I'll do a little bit of Shape Builder too, and understanding expanding. Now we're going to utilize that to create Pathfinder and some contact icons here. So mainly, I have my shapes that I've pre-made. I'm going to make this and then maybe have to reverse it out in a black circle, or like kind of what we might see with normal icon shape. So let's just play around here. So what I want to do currently right now, I have my smart guides on, view smart guides. I like to have them on. This is going to help me out, but there's many different ways to align. So I like to have my control panel open. If you don't have it open, window and control. I'm also going to have my align panel open, and I'm also going to have obviously my Pathfinder open as well. So what I can do, I'm just going to take this basic shape here and just going to drag it over, and what the smart guides will help me align it right to the center, which is great. So I'll just click and drag it in there. Now it's a black shape on top of another black shape, so let me just make it white. Maybe I'll go to my color or my swatch panel and make it white. Doesn't really matter which one you do, or I could double click inside one of my fill or stroke and make it white as well. So 3 options to change the color up there. So just to be on the safe side, if for some reason it is off, I can always select both by using my black arrow tool, the select tool, select both by dragging the marquee over top of them and just clicking on the center align. And what that does is it allows me to do that, but I align to, so make sure you're aligned to selection, or aligned to key object we're going to use quite a bit too, but aligned to artboard we're not going to use much. But you may have noticed what happened was both actually kind of moved, but what if I didn't want this one to move? I wanted this white shape to align to this shape. Well, it is aligned to selection, correct? Well, we could also select both, but now both are selected, and I could, with both selected, I could click on one more shape to make that the key object, and you see now the stroke around it got a little bit darker. So what that is now, it automatically went to align to key object. So now this shape will align to this shape, and I can just press center align, and now it's aligned. If say that I wanted the other way around, I wanted this black shape to align to the white shape, I would, with everything selected already, I select this one shape again to make that the key object. I can align, and now that moves over. Either way it's fine, just to show you that. Align to selection or key object. Well, I'm going to do this again here. I'm going to make this one white this time, because that's what I see over here. More or less, I'm taking these shapes. I'm going to make this, and I can bring that over, and it's probably the smart guides are going to snap it into play. But once again, just to be on the safe side, I'll select everything. I'll select the black back rectangle one more time, and it's going to be key object because I selected it one more time, and I'm going to align, and now everything's aligned perfectly, and that's it. You've made the shape. Well, now let's pretend I want to bring it into this black circle. Okay, so if I bring it into the black circle, what I'll do is maybe I'll group it. So I'll group it, Command G or Object and Group, so that way I can just drag it all in. I'm going to duplicate it as well. Hold on Option and Shift to keep it in line, and I'll bring it down in here. And roughly, let's just say the smart guides will help me align it right there. That's great. Okay, well, there's a problem because I can't see it, and it looks like this black shape's on top anyway. So let me go to Object and Arrange and Send to Back. All right, so now it is in the back, but obviously I have to reverse this out. So let me select that. I'm going to select the shape. It's grouped. And now what I can do is I'll ungroup it. And with ungrouping it, Object, Ungroup. So now I could select the large black shape, and I'll make it white. Once again, I can use my swatch panel, or I can use my color. I'll use my color panel this time, make it white, and I make this shape black, and I can eventually go black, and I can make this circle black as well. Great, done, awesome. Well, what if I actually didn't have to make these other shapes black? I could just get rid of these shapes, and I'll just have cut out this black shape and the black rectangle and the circle from this. So what I could do instead is I could select all 3 of these, and because they're all shapes, I can do a Pathfinder, use Pathfinder, and I could divide. And by doing that, what will happen is it'll just cut out this black shape and this black circle from the larger white rectangle, and they just won't exist anymore. So let me do that. So now what I can do, so I'm going to bring this over so we can get a better sense of it. I'm going to bring it right over here to get an idea. And if I pathfind divide, now what I do, because as soon as you pathfind, everything's grouped, I can ungroup, which is Object, Ungroup, or I could just use my white tool, but it doesn't really matter, my white arrow. I'm just going to select this, and my black, and now we see it's gone, and select this little black circle, and now that's gone too. And once again, now I'm just left with one shape, not three separate shapes. It's one large shape that just happens to have areas cut out of it. And once again, I could align that properly, key object, and align and align. So that's another way to do that. Obviously the first way was fine, but now we can go a little further with this one. You notice that I have a little bit of a rounded area around here, my rounded corners. I could do the same thing. I could have done the same thing with when all three shapes were there, but I'm going to do it here with just this one. And what I can do, I'm zooming in, Command plus and Command minus, zooming in and out. If I hold down the Command key when I'm playing around with this, I can actually select certain ones. I'm also holding down Shift now to only select certain ones. And these little circles, what they'll do in the corners, they'll allow me to round corners. If that'll allow me to do that, once again, hold down Command, I'm going to Shift. I'm holding down Shift as well to Shift click the certain ones, which I just want the outside ones. I don't want these ones just yet. And I'm just going to click and drag and see what happens when there we go. So now just those four are moving, and I'm just kind of playing around with the roundedness of the corner. I can see my radius tooltip there, 0.01, that's fine. If I want to do them all at once, I could have. I'll press the Command as well again, click on that. Hold down Command, and these ones show up too. Now everything will go at the same time. I'm not just individually selecting them, but we could always play around with rounded corners kind of that way. So now I have rounded corners, and it works a certain way. That's how we can use rounded corners, which is a pretty simple way to play around with the rectangle. So here's the next one. I've already pre-made these shapes. Realistically, this one's pretty easy too with the rounded corners. Let me show you really quickly. So I just made a shape that was just a rectangle. That's it. Let me change the color just so I could give you a sense of what I'm talking about here. So there, I'm just going to bring it up. And that's all I really did was, once again, I select my shape here. I'm only going to select this and this circle, and I'm going to bring them roughly in about there. That's really all I did with that one. This other one was a little bit trickier, where I'm going to make, once again, just a rectangle. Great. And I'm going to bring in, I could round these if I want to, which I will, and I'll show you how far that gets me. I'm sure there's many different ways to do this. And I'll click on, I'll get my black arrow tool here, my selection tool better. And what that'll do, I'll just select this one, and I'll hold down Shift and select this one. So only these two corners are going to round. I'm going to round them as much as I can. Kind of can see it there. There it is. Now, does that get me exactly what I want? No. So maybe what I can do is, well, there's a few things I can do. I could drag one in, remove one. So I'm just going to add an extra anchor point here, right in the middle. I'm going to minus these two. Now, obviously that doesn't look great, but what I'll do is I'll just play around with bringing these up and I'll use my smart guide to help me. I'll hold down Shift to keep them in line, and that's more or less where I'm at. Very simple, very easy. Maybe there's a little more curve here, but there's many different ways to play around with it. That's just a quick one I thought of off the top. Okay, so either way, I'm going to use my, move this over. I'm just going to create the shape. So I'm going to bring this here. I'm going to select this, and I'm going to go back and select this again to make it a key object, and I'm just going to align to the left. I'll do the same, select this and only this one. I'll click this shape again and make that the key object, and I'll right align. Now it's going to be right aligned to that just by using the key object, and that's it, done. So what I could do, I could take that, I'm duplicating it, holding down Option and Shift when I drag it over, and I just kind of made a 45-degree angle. I held down Shift, and now that's where I am. Well, ideally, that's fine the way it is, but maybe I want to connect these all together, and I can use the Shape Builder tool, or I could use Pathfinder. So if I would just want to unite all these shapes together, make it one big shape as opposed to three separate shapes, I could just press Unite, and now they're united. Great. The other thing I could do, I could select all of these, and I could use the Shape Builder tool. And as long as they're all selected, now I can just click and drag which ones I want selected. Maybe I just want those selected, or maybe just those. So now I have the Shape Builder selected too. So that's it. Very, very simple. And with that, now what I can do is I can bring this over here. I'll bring this here. I'll make it white and shrink it down. Hold down Shift proportionally, drag from the corner, and there I could align it. And maybe if I do select both and I key object this one again, I click on that again, and I center vertically and horizontally, maybe visually it doesn't align properly, so I might have to like tighten it up a little bit or move around with it. So that's how that one works. So the next one here, I got to do an extra little step. So I made my rectangle, but I also made this little line here. And once again, very simply, I can make that just by using my pen tool. And I can just easily click, and I'll do another click in the middle. While holding shift, I'll click, and then I'll make another click. I'm using the smart guides to help me align it, but even if you don't, you can still kind of do that. And I'll just press escape to kill that line, and I'll grab my middle, and I'll just drag it down, hold down shift, and I could go any angle I want. It doesn't really matter. You can play around with it, and I'm just going to make not the fill black, but I'll make the stroke black. And once again, with my stroke panel open as well, which is right here, I'll open it all the way. I could make it 2 point or 4 point or whatever this one happens to be. I could match that up. Let's just go 10 point potentially. All right, and that's it. That's how I made that. And now what I'm going to do, so the Pathfinder doesn't work with strokes. It has to have, has to be a shape. Even though it's a path, granted, it has to be a filled shape. So what I'll do, I need to use the expand option. So I'm going to go to Object and Expand. And what that allows is to say, what do you want to expand? The fill, a stroke? I want to expand the stroke. And I'll just say, okay, and there it is. I've expanded. Now it's no longer a stroke, it's a fill. So what I'll do is I'll bring this over here. And once again, I could make it a little bit bigger just so I don't have those issues there. I'll make it just a little bit bigger, but I think it's fine as is. I'll shut my smart guides off because they're making me snap, and then I'll turn them back on. And what I'll do is I could, once again, I could turn this white just to make sure I know what I'm seeing. That always a little helpful. Maybe to align it 100%, I'll select both. I'll click on the background rectangle to make sure that's the one I want to align to. The key object, I align, and now they're perfectly aligned. And now with that, that's all I have to do is divide, which I love to do. I click on divide, now it's divided. I'll use my white arrow tool or my black arrow tool. I just got to make sure that I ungroup it. And I just select the little extra shapes I don't need. And that's a little extra shape I didn't need there. That's a little extra shape I didn't need there. And quite frankly, this shape here I don't need either. So I'll delete that, and now I'm literally left with 2 shapes. And that line got cut out now. And that's it. So if I want to bring this over here, I'm just going to delete this for now as I don't need it. And I'll bring both over. I'll turn it white, and I bring it to the front, which is Command Shift close bracket or Object Arrange, bring to front. I try to use those keyboard commands, and because it's all selected, I'll select that, key object it, once again, align and align, horizontally, vertically. Maybe obviously I need to shrink it down a little bit. But the idea too is to keep them all consistent, as consistent as you can in terms of size. So this one obviously a little bit smaller, maybe I need to make it bigger, and maybe I need to make these ones smaller, whatever the case is. So those 3 are done. Now the next 3, very similar, same idea. I've already made this circle. The circle is easy to make with the, obviously, circle tool here. And I just gave it a stroke of, well, 6.4, but I'm sure I messed around with it a little bit, but around there. Now these lines, obviously one straight line, one straight line. Once again, very easy to make. Use the line tool, use the pen tool, whatever. Well, these extra lines might be a little trickier, but they're actually quite easy. So I'm just going to take this line I've already made. And what I like to use this tool, the pen tool. I'll go to the pen tool, and if I hover over the line and I'm holding down Option, what it does, it turns into this manipulate curve tool, and I can just manipulate the curve and kind of move it from the center any way I want. And that's roughly where I want to be, and that's easy enough. And now I've made that shape. That's great, or similar to it, anyways. And then what I can do is duplicate it, hold on Option and Shift, and click and drag. And now I could just right click. I like to do it this way too. Transform and reflect, and it just reflects vertical, and it's okay. Another way to do that is go to the Transform panel and drop down and flip horizontally or vertically. This time it's flip horizontal, and then I have it there too. So that's more or less how I made these. These ones I must have made a little bit different using probably just a pen tool, but I actually kind of like these ones better. Either way, that's it. I'm going to drag all these 3. I'll bring them over. I'm going to hold down Shift to keep them in line, and roughly they are in the middle. I'll Command G all of them just to group them. So now they're grouped, and I'm just going to click on everything, select the circle to make it the key object, and align vertically and horizontally just to make sure everything's there. And then the same, I just took those 3, I just flipped them, I just rotated them from here to just hover over the corner until it turns into the rotate tool, and I rotated holding down Shift to make sure it is at a 90-degree angle, and I just bring them over as well. And they may have already been grouped, I can't recall, so I'm just going to Command G group them again one more time, select the circle, make it a key object, center line, vertically align and horizontally align, and that's it, they're done. And that's it. Well, now if you remember, once again, I cannot use the Pathfinder to create, I can't use strokes with the Pathfinder, so I do have to convert them to shapes. So once again, not a problem, object and expand. They're no longer going to be strokes, they're going to be fills, and that's it. And now you notice all these little kind of gaps here and everything, very easy. Once again, because everything's selected, I can use the shape builder tool if I wanted to and kind of go around and select them, which ones I want. But we know that obviously I want all of them, but even if you didn't, you could select certain ones, whatever. I select all of them and I'm just gonna say unite, and now they're all united. And once again, I'll bring this circle over. I'm gonna grab this, they're all together. I'm going to hold it shift and scale it down. I will make it white, and I will select both, make sure the key object is the larger object, align, and there we go, done. Same one here, made a rectangle, made a triangle. Triangle is very easy to make. I'm going to click on the star tool. I'm going to click and drag. As I click and drag, I'm holding down the click, and on my keyboard, I'm just going to hold down the arrow tool, and I could add more points or I could remove points, and the least amount of points you could have obviously is 3. So now I hold down shift to make it any way I want. I'll let go of the key and I could kind of just play around with the angle, whatever I want there. And these are just simple rectangles as well. So once again, what I'll do is I'll select both of those and I'll align with key object, and I'll just say center that. Yeah. And I'll bring this in and I'll select this and I'll align to this key object and align, and I'll make it white just so I can tell. And I'll bring this over, I'm just going to drag it over and kind of align it where I want. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're just playing around. Whether you want the chimney or not, obviously the house works without it, which is fine. I'm just going to bring it over here for now, kind of have it similar, whatever I want. There we go. Now, once again, I select all. I can do a Pathfinder, or shape, and I could just select, and that's great. I've selected all the black ones, all the black shapes, and now the white one. What I want to do, I'm going to drag it. If you notice, what happens sometimes, just to be on the safe side, Command plus, I'm zooming in really, really close, is that there might be a little black line down there. There might be a little extra, and if I do divide, what will happen, there might be a little black line down there where, well, just to get rid of that, maybe I'll just extend this out a little bit so that doesn't happen. So I select all of it. I'm going to divide, done. So I could use my black arrow tool and make sure I ungroup, object ungroup, and now they're all ungrouped, and I just select this, gone, and I select that. That was the extra shape gone, and now if I select it all, I see that it's just one united shape, much easier to work with. And I'm going to bring it over here, and I will scale it down. I'll make it white, and I'll hang it over, bring it over here, and then I'm done. And now once again, I could just scale it down, ideally try to find my best so they're all visually very similar. That's obviously a very important thing with our contact icons. If you want to use these later at whatever point, there has to be some similarity. If you have too much white or too much positive space, too much negative space, you want to make sure that they actually have similarities where one doesn't stick out more than another. So even this one here, there's a large negative space, counter space there, where these ones have a little bit more positive space in the middle. So maybe you work with that one, or maybe you don't use that one, or try to find ones that have more negative space, whatever the case is. But once again, I'll select and I'll align, and now they're great. And the last one here, once again, I just grabbed the circle, so I'm just going to make a quick circle here. Hold down shift to keep it proportional, hold down option to pull from the center. I will make it black. And that's all I do is I grab my white arrow tool, I'll grab the bottom one, and the bottom anchor point, and I'll just drag it down. And then what I could do with that one clicked, I could either just drag these control arms in, or another quick way to do that is select that one point, go up to my control panel and just say make it a corner, and now it's a corner, and that's kind of it. And that's it. So I've made that. I'm going to bring my circle over here. I'm just going to align it nicely. Once again, select both, make the one object, the larger object, the key object. I'm going to align, that's roughly good. I'm going to make it white just so I can see it. And that's it. Now to poke it out is, once again, I could just use my divide, or now because this one's on top, once again, I'm just a huge fan of unite and divide. I feel all of these, or a majority of these, can just be dumbed down to divide and unite, but obviously some are a little bit quicker. So this one here, minus front, so what it's going to do is it's going to subtract the thing that's in front, which happens to be the circle, which is what I want. So I can do that, and now it actually is subtracted from the front. We could see that is actually, now this is actually just one shape here, and that works out quite well. So what I could do, once again, I'll bring this over, I'll delete this, I don't need this anymore. And I'll bring this here, I'll turn it to white, and I'll bring it to the front because it was behind, which once again is object arrange, bring to front. And I'll shrink it down, scale it down, hold down shift, and I like to hold down option too, so I scale it from the middle, which is always nice. And I'll select both, key object, and there we go, and more or less that's it. So we've recreated all these little icons that we wanted to make, but once again we could play around with them a little bit more. But just by using all these shapes and using Pathfinder, once again my unite and divide I like to use more often, shape builder, and expanding, which anytime we have a stroke, if we want to use Pathfinder, we can't use stroke, so we use expand to convert our strokes into shapes. So I hope that helped you create some contact icons.